today we are going to have a look at another dominant theory of international relations, liberalism. Liberalism is sometimes labeled as liberal institutionalist, and it is associated with classical analysts like John Locke, Hugo, and Immanuel Kant. On today's video, we are predominantly going to look at Kant's work and the contribution it did to the school of thought. For Kant, peace was not simply an ideal. He believed that natural processes of self-interest could impel rational individuals to act as agents to bring a just peace. Some liberal assumptions in Kant's framework are belief in rational qualities of individuals, faith in feasibility of progress in social life, the conviction that humans, despite their self-interest, are able to cooperate and construct a more peaceful and harmonious society. Liberal internationalism arising from Kant has transposed these beliefs to the international sphere by emphasizing the fact that war and conflict can be overcome or mitigated through concerned changes in both the domestic and international structures of governance. Now, although this is a competing perspective, but it is not antithetical to realism. To have a deeper understanding of liberalism and its emphasis on the potentially peace promoting effects of domestic and transnational institutions, we will have a look at the restraints on war. Realist perspective on constraints. Power ratio. One way to reduce the likelihood of going to war is to deter it with military strength. Most deterrence theorists argue that conflict is best prevented by a great predominance of power for one side. Allies. They share important strategic and security interests. If they have military disputes among themselves, they risk weakening their common front against a country which they perceive as a common enemy. For example, during the Cold War, NATO allies did not fight each other. Also, distance and size makes it harder and more costly to exert military power. Kantian constraints. It is suggested that democracies will rarely fight or even threaten each other. Democracies may also be more peaceful with all kinds of states. Many studies may support the first proposition that democracies would rarely fight or even threaten each other, but the second claim, which is democracies may also be more peaceful with all kinds of states, is more controversial. However, two plausible explanations for why democracies at least do not fight with each other are: first, norms. Democracies operate internally on the principle that conflicts are to be resolved peacefully by negotiation and compromise without resorting to the threat or use of organized violence. Democratic people and their leaders recognize other democracies as operating under the same principle in their internal relations, which is why they extend to them the principle of peace conflict resolution. Institutions. Democratic leaders who fight a war are held responsible through democratic institutions for the costs and benefits of the war. Many of the costs are borne by the general public, and democratic leaders who start wars, they risk being voted out of the office, especially if they lose or the war is long or costly. Also, democratic leaders will be reluctant to fight wars, especially ones they are likely to lose. When facing another democracy, both sets of leaders will be restrained. It is likely that both explanations operate depending on the circumstances. The measure of democracy incorporates several restraints on government, such as institutions and procedures through which citizens can express their preferences in elections. Nonetheless, the likelihood of conflict depends primarily on how undemocratic um, the less democratic state is. The greatest risk is between a dictatorship and a democracy, and the least between the two highly democratic states. International trade. Sustained commercial interaction becomes a medium of communication whereby information about needs and preferences are exchanged across a broad range of matters. This may result in greater mutual understanding, empathy, and mutual identity across boundaries. Trade depends on expectations of peace with the trading partner. Violent conflict endangers access to markets, imports, and capital. Now, the larger the contribution of trade between two countries to their national economies, the stronger the political base that has an interest in preserving peaceful relations between them. International organizations include both almost universal organizations such as the UN or the IMF, those focused on particular types of countries or regions. They may be multi-purpose or functional agencies directed to specific goals such as military security, promoting international commerce and investment, health, environmental concerns, or human rights. The means by which they may promote peace also vary greatly on a range that they include separating or coercing norm breakers, mediating among conflicting parties, reducing uncertainty by providing information, expanding members' material interests to be more inclusive and longer term, shaping norms and generating narratives of mutual identification. Also, international organizations vary widely in effectiveness. Are democracies more peaceful in general? Now, a dietic perspective does not tell us whether democracies maintain more peaceful relations with all other states, because in a world of countries with different political and economic systems, they may still come to conflict with some of them. Any statement that democracies are especially peaceful monadically must be carefully qualified because a monadic claim ignores the dangers democracies face in the realm of power politics in an incompletely Kantian world. The dietic claim, by definition, includes both the dynamics of domestic political interaction between leader and potential opposition, and the interaction between two independent states. Monadic claim completely ignores the latter. Perhaps we might see a stronger monadic effect in a system where democracies are a strong majority. We do know that geographical neighborhoods in which democracies is the predominant form of government are especially peaceful. Which side starts or escalates the fight? Here, evidence is stronger even when the democracies are involved in diplomatic disputes with dictatorships. They are less likely than the dictators to initiate the use of violence and less likely to escalate any violence to a high level. Thus, the dictator's action tends to produce the fight. Sometimes, however, great powers, even democratic ones, may take preventive military action to defeat potential challenges before they become big threats. Constraining war by international organizations. Great powers are less constrained by trade and IGOs. Mutual trade in a diet constrains the political system of the bigger state less than that of the smaller one, since the trade represents a low percentage of its GDP. Also, great power depends less on regional or functional IGOs for their security than do many mid-sized and smaller states. Finally, democratic political systems vary greatly in how and how effectively they can restrain their leaders. A Kantian liberal perspective on world politics um, can provide means for sustaining peace when military advantage fades. Promoting democracies, deepening linkages of international trade, and extending the multilateral networks of IGOs offers the possibility of strengthening existing peaceful relations and expanding their scope to most of the world. With that conclusion, we have come to the end of this video. Please give it a thumbs up if this video has been helpful and share it. Subscribe for more videos. Thank you for watching. See you next time.